Cybersecurity is slowly but surely becoming a bigger piece in any contemporary defense strategy, but it's not only our precious data that attackers are after. Critical infrastructure like electricity or water supply are vulnerable and could be easily attacked at any moment. This is where companies like NanoLock step in to make sure our lifelines remain open in times of emergency.
A nation's infrastructure is all networked and uniquely vulnerable to cyber attack.
We've seen that, prior to the events in the Ukraine. We've already seen that there were hacks in Ukraine on and successfully on the Ukrainian power infrastructure. You talk about nation-state attacks. One way to bring a country to its knees is to bring down its energy infrastructure. You bring down the electricity grid.
But the means to protect all sorts of critical energy infrastructure still runs on platforms years, if not decades, out of date.
Standards still need to catch up, but again, standards take 2-3 years to develop. Guess what? During those 2-3 years, the adversaries have already moved on, and I think that's an approach from cyber as well. That so much of cyber is focused around detection. Well, once you detect something, it means you've already got a problem.
And the vulnerable surfaces aren't just the top-level networks at a power station. In fact, the individual home, and specifically power meter, is becoming a prime target.
If they can alter the configuration of the meter, then they're ultimately able to change the usage.
At the moment, power hacking is the domain of organized crime or money-motivated criminals, but it's becoming more tempting and widespread.
The whole ransomware piece, that's not necessarily coming from a nation-state perspective. That's opportunists looking to how can we make the biggest money. And certainly again with the energy price rise, that's become a lot more lucrative than what it was before.
Not just hackers. When it's a power company with thousands of workers, anyone can be an opening, and the damage they can do to national infrastructure is staggering.
If people will not have access to heating or food or charging their electrical vehicle, the outcome of that could be social unrest, could be the creation of reasons to fight others.
So with networks as big as they need to be to power entire nations, what can be done to reduce the attack surface? For Israeli cybersecurity company NanoLock, the answer is to change the rules of the cyber game entirely.
You have identity control. Who are you? There's network anomaly. Is what's happening in the network legit? And we came up with the next generation as the command legit.
The idea is you can't stop a motivated hacker from getting into a system with tens of millions of devices and tens of thousands of employees, but you can make a network penetration irrelevant.
It's not about the person, it's not about detection, it's about prevention. And every machine, every device has a point where there's a command going and saying, please erase this, please change this, please write this. And instead of trying to understand, is this a legit command? Is this a legit originator? Is that a good network? Is that a good device? We only say the command must be signed by a legit or a valid server or a signing entity.
It doesn't mean the system can't be cracked, though it's still a lot harder. But managing to crack the system will not give hackers control of a network.
Can a very sophisticated adversary do something? The answer is probably yes. The level of sophistication, efforts, and so on and so forth will enable him to do that, but it's extremely complicated. And another layer that we've put, every device is unique, so we assume that you can crack it in very complicated scenario, but then you cracked one device. So it's cracking and then duplicating that on a mass scale, I would say nearly impossible.
And that negates the advantage the best hackers can bear.
Regardless if who did that is an adversary from Russia or from Iran, or the adversary is a disgruntled employee or somebody who was paid to do that.
That keeps networks safer, whether one machine or billions.